Hello, everybody. Tracy Mrs. JDog Flanagan with you here today. I'm the co-founder and senior vice president at JDog Brands. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tactical Treasures Podcast, powered by JDog and Vet TV. Our podcast gives our MilSpouses, active duty members, and veterans a voice in the veteran space to speak about their service, how they're affecting their communities post-service, and they share with me a tactical treasure that has helped them in their journey in their military career, business, or life. Today, I'm so excited to have with me Evie King. Evie is a former Army brat. As a daughter of two Army veterans, an active duty Army MilSpouse, and for her outstanding commitment to the military community, including advocacy for the well-being and mental health of all military spouses, Evie King was named the 2023 Armed Forces Insurance Military Spouse of the Year. In addition, Evie is the board president of Independent, where she provides leadership to a team of 25 volunteer military spouses who work to eliminate barriers to health and wellness within the military spouse community. And in this endeavor, she worked to connect over 10,000 military spouses to health and wellness resources in 2022. Well, thanks for joining me. And also, congratulations on being named the 2023 Armed Forces Insurance Military Spouse. What an amazing accomplishment.
It's still something that still feels very, very new. I know so many previous winners, and they've not only done amazing things, but continue to do amazing things. And I only hope that I continue to do the same and give back to the community. And after reading that bio, I'm like, wow, this person sounds amazing. But I just think military spouses are so incredible, and we have a lot of opportunities. And I've just been very thankful for the opportunities I've had along the way that have led me to this interview.
Yeah. I think military spouses are amazing too. You ladies are something else. My hats go off to you. I mean, what you provide for your family and supporting your spouse as they're deployed, it's just amazing. You guys are really rock stars. So how did you and your husband first meet? I'm excited to hear kind of that little story.
We met in college. So my husband was a couple of years ahead of me, and we were both at the College of New Jersey. We were called community advisors, but at a lot of other colleges and universities, they're called residence advisors. So we were, as part of, our room and board getting paid, we worked in the residence advising, department and helped manage those who lived on campus. My husband and I were totally different in terms of the clubs and things that we did. He was doing ROTC. He was actually in the National Guard at the time. And I was doing theater, and then, just very invested in my degree, which is finance, which is funny because I don't do that at all now. But we met in college, and we met before he deployed. His first deployment was with the New Jersey National Guard. And even though both of my parents were prior service, we had never gone through a deployment. Very fortunate. Right. And I didn't understand what that meant outside of what you saw on the news. So it was all very new to me. And the concept seemed so foreign because he told me he was going on a deployment while I was still in college. And when you're on a college campus, it feels very isolated and protected from the outside world. So I agreed to continue to date this person going through something that I really had no idea what to expect.
Right.
But here we are, almost 12 years married later. And yeah, I wouldn't change it for anything.
Oh, that's great. So you obviously married somewhere along the way. And you were then a active MilSpouse. And what was that experience like, being an active duty MilSpouse?
Well, at first, I won't lie, I cried before we got married.
Oh.
My husband was stationed at Fort Campbell, and at the time, asking for your job to be remote was not really a thing. So I had a very good career with a company I really enjoyed. I was a corporate accountant working for a glass manufacturer. So I was out on the plant floor wearing, steel-toed boots and, personal protective equipment and talking with different people every single day. I was the finance and accounting person at one of the plants. And then when I married my spouse, or kind of leading up to it, I knew that I would have to leave that. And it was very scary. I remember going to the commissary with my spouse, which, I've been to the commissary my whole life growing up. But all of a sudden, walking into that building, it felt different because I was like, now I'm going to be part of this community. And, I don't need to go there with my mom or with my then fiance. And I didn't know what I could grasp onto. Everything felt like it was changing and almost like I was assuming a new identity and leaving the identity of who I was before behind, which I know now not to be the case. But at the time, I felt like that's what was needed in order to be a military spouse. So I dove headfirst into volunteering. I said yes to being a family readiness group leader. Now, as the soldier and family readiness group leader, I used to volunteer for, not Operation Homefront, but one of those where they give, like free suit backpacks for kids for school. I mean, I was doing everything because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Now, I wouldn't recommend that.
Right.
But at the time, I just felt like I was trying to gain some sort of footing into what was going to be this new adventure with my significant other. We were very fortunate, though, because our date of marriage had nothing to do with the deployment. So this was back in 2011. Fort Campbell was still deploying almost every single year, depending on what unit we were in. So he came home, we had a date set, we got married, and 2 weeks later found out he was deploying for the third time.
Oh, wow.
And so I was expecting to have him around while I figured out what being a military spouse meant. But then, I sort of felt like, wait a second, I just left everything that I know to move here to be with you, and now you're leaving. And It was a very uncertain time for me, but one that I'm grateful that I have because it is an experience that many military spouses to this day have. And so I feel like because I've had that experience, but now I'm in such, I think, a great place where I know who I am. I feel confident in what I'm doing. I have a sense of purpose. I'm glad that I went through that, but at the time, the future seemed extremely uncertain, and I was afraid of what that meant for me as Evie.
Right. So it sounds like you probably PCS'd a bunch of times, right? So which PCS do you feel was maybe the most impactful or special for you?
Yes, there have actually been a couple for a few different reasons. So my whole life, I've always wanted to live overseas. I lived in Turkey when I was young. My dad was stationed in Izmir, Turkey when I was around 2 or 3. But as an adult who actually had memories that, they could recall, I always knew I wanted to live overseas. So after being married a couple of years, my husband got the opportunity to be stationed in South Korea. And
wow.
It was wonderful. I absolutely loved it. And so preparing for that PCS, it was the most incredible experience because I felt like a lifelong dream was being actualized. So I was just excited about everything. And at that time, I didn't have a job, so I wasn't really worried about that. And I've heard from a lot of military spouses that they'd been able to get work while, they were stationed overseas, probably not in what you were doing before, but something if you wanted or that it was just kind of expected that you weren't working. And so in a way, I was looking forward to that because I felt like, okay, well, if I don't get a job, there's really no expectation. I can absolve myself of that expectation and just experience living overseas. So that was really wonderful. The second one that comes to mind was back in, I think it was 2019 or 2020. My husband and I were geobaching. I stayed back at Fort Liberty because I was working for USASOC at the time. And my husband went to school at Leavenworth, and then he was accepted to another school for another year. And so we PCSed finally together after living separately for, I think it was 9 months or something like that. Wow. So that was really special because I felt like, we were moving back to be together as a family.
Yeah.
And this last PCS to Europe was unique because my spouse was deployed at the time. So I had to not only prepare for us to move abroad, but I was also preparing for my spouse to come home from an over 12-month deployment.
Wow.
And I had to pack everything for him, which is just a whole nother layer of stress.
Sure it is, yeah.
Because everything that I packed, not to say we couldn't buy anything, but moving is already so expensive.
Yeah.
This is what he's going to be wearing for the next couple of months after wearing a uniform for, 415 days, I think. So it just felt very heavy and stressful.
Right.
And then when we moved, you're having to deal with a completely new country, but then you're also having to reintegrate as a couple. And so there were just so many beautiful, but also, I don't know, just hard moments in those months when we moved to Germany.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, great stories. Great takeaways. I love it. Hello, viewers and listeners. Are you a military veteran or a military family member and looking to own your own business? If so, go to JDog.com and check out our 2 veteran-focused franchises, JDog Junk Removal and Hauling and JDog Carpet Cleaning and Floor Care. Our franchisees nationwide are always looking to hire fellow veterans and patriots. JDog is the world's largest military franchise system with hundreds of locations nationwide. We are nearly 90% veteran-owned with the goal of reducing the veteran unemployment rate to under 1%. Check us out. Go to jdog.com to learn more. Now, back to the podcast. So now, and I'm really excited to talk to you about this. So you're the board president at Independent.
Yes.
Could you tell us what Independent is and about the work you're doing there?
Absolutely. So Independent is a nonprofit, and our mission is to make wellness accessible and create opportunities for all military spouses to connect for friendship, accountability, and inspiration. So much of the military spouse experience can feel very isolating. And when it comes to health and wellness, while it is a deeply personal experience, is also something that universally we all have, right? We all want to be well. We all want to have just energy to live life the way we want, to be mentally well, to have strong relationships, whatever that might be, be financially set for the future. And I found Independent between moving from South Korea to Fort Liberty. And at that time, moving back to the States, I was kind of going through some of my own, wellness issues, mostly mental health issues. Mm-hmm. I got a job in South Korea, but unfortunately not my direct supervisor, but the supervisor above that created a very toxic environment at work. So it was just not good for my mental health, and it put a lot of strain on my marriage. So I was searching for something, and then I Googled military spouse wellness and found Independent. And since 2016, when I joined, I've done probably everything this organization has had to offer. And now as president, we are shifting our focus from sort of a grassroots blogging group, which was what it was when I first started, to more of we want and are the number one only military spouse wellness nonprofit. We exclusively serve military spouse health and well-being. So we are transitioning from a grassroots blog group where we would write stories about military spouse wellness and how we were all sort of overcoming adversity and the challenges of military life, and then also celebrating those that were doing well to share those experiences. And now we're shifting our focus to be more of an expert and trusted resource in the military spouse health and wellness space. So we're the only nonprofit that exclusively supports military spouse health and well-being. We are pushing out articles written by military spouse wellness professionals. We are working with experts in the wellness space to create education courses around topics that either need to be addressed from a military spouse specific angle or are gaps in what are already out there, because there are so many people doing incredible things out in the wellness space, but
sure.
There are still gaps in what some of those topics being covered are.
Right.
We cover everything from how to support a neighbor who you might have just met or knew for a long time who might have had a miscarriage. How do you support them through that difficult time? We've talked about domestic violence. We've talked about substance use in the military spouse space. And we even talk about sexual well-being, because we are military spouses, and that's something that affects our community.
Yeah.
So we address, I think, a lot of topics that the military spouse community is searching and looking for resources and education and content on, that I think a lot of other nonprofits are just not talking about.
Right. I love this. I think this is wonderful what you're doing. I've been to the website, and the information is just amazing, because we all talk about our veterans, right? We all talk about resources for them to help them with mental wellness and manage PTSD issues and that sort of thing. And unfortunately, it's a shame, but I think the military spouse gets lost because you guys deal with a lot of stuff as well. You deal with PCS, you deal with managing the home, going months, maybe a year or more without your spouse. And the mental stuff that goes on with you guys is huge, has to be. So I love that you're providing resources and getting that information out, so MilSpouses know that they're not alone either. There's right. help out there. There's resources. There's MilSpouses and clinicians to help with the mental health. I think it's wonderful. So MilSpouses, if they're struggling or trying to, how would they go about signing up for the various programs and that sort of thing? How could they find you guys?
We are right now an exclusively virtual organization. So everything that we do and offer is online. Okay. Our biggest event is our Independent Wellness Summit, which is a week of wellness that military spouses can partake in from anywhere in the world. We say from the comfort of their own home. And that will be launching in September. So if you go on our website, you can sign up and be on our mailing list. Right now, everything else that we offer is completely free. The summit itself is also free, but we do have some previous levels because, again, we believe in making wellness accessible. And not only is location sometimes a barrier, but cost can be a barrier. So we always try to have a free version of everything that we do, or at least offer, content and education for free. We will be launching. So right now we do have a course called Fuel the Homefront. It is a nutritional and financial well-being course that talks about how do you as a military family nourish yourself and your family within a budget, and also keeping in mind, time associated with food prep, eating out, because that's also something that military families do a lot because we travel so frequently, as well as other ways to reduce costs and stress when you are feeding your family, because what is one of the biggest we think myths when it comes to eating well, and that is that it's expensive and time consuming. So we have a course that we do live workshops, but we're actually transitioning it to an on-demand course, and that will be available later this year. This is also Independent's 10th year of existence. We were founded in 2013, although we've only been a nonprofit technically since 2016, but our name became Independent in 2018 as a nonprofit. So everything we are online, we're on, Instagram, Facebook. You can find us on the 12 Million Plus app and our website as well, in-dependent.org.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Such an important work that you're doing there, Evie. I think it's awesome. Hello, viewers and listeners. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Tactical Treasures Podcast. We are currently speaking with Evie King, who is a former Army brat, being the daughter of 2 Army veterans. She is also an active duty Army MilSpouse, and she has been named the 2023 Armed Forces Insurance Military Spouse of the Year. She is also the board president of Independent, which is a wellness community built by military spouses for military spouses of all branches of the U.S. Armed Forces, making wellness accessible and creating opportunities for all military spouses to connect for friendship, accountability, and inspiration. Independent offers virtual wellness programs and resources, including an annual virtual wellness summit, a wellness directory that links MilSpouses with professionals who understand military and first responder families, and Fuel the Home Front, a virtual workshop that helps provide easy, family-friendly meals that maximize one's budget. To find out more and to tap in to all the resources and programs available, head to in-dependent.org. Now back to the podcast. Now it's called Tactical Treasures Podcast. So we could talk about this all day, but I would love to dive into your tactical treasure. So what would you like to share with us?
Well, I was thinking about this, right? Because I'm like, what is something that I keep finding myself coming back to? And when I thought about it that way, what reminds me and helps me with alignment of what it is that I want to spend my time and energy on, it goes back to one of my favorite quotes. It's actually by President Woodrow Wilson. And he says, "You are not here merely to make a living. You are here in order to enable the world to live more amply, with greater vision, with a finer spirit of hope and achievement. You are here to enrich the world, and you impoverish yourself if you forget the errand." And when I think about that, I actually just got goosebumps right now.
Oh, wow. I did too. That gave me goosebumps.
I know, it's like the most perfect quote, especially that part of like, you are here to enrich the world. And when I think about that, like we all have so much to offer the world. And what I want to do is leave the world better than me being in it right now. And so I just constantly think like, how can I make the experience of those who are both in this military spouse journey with me, the military community as a whole, more enriched? And when I think about that, our health and well-being is that foundation. And so I know that when I am doing something that is in alignment with that quote, I know that it is something that is worth my time and energy.
Wow, that's a great treasure and very profound words from Woodrow Wilson.
Yes. I know. Too bad they're not mine.
I know, right? But I totally believe that. And, wherever you're planted,
right.
you have a duty and an obligation to try to do what God purposed you to do. I truly believe that. So, and it sounds like you're doing just that. So I think it's really awesome that you're able to provide such a great resource for the military spouse community. And I'm sure they're all enriched by having the resources and being able to have a place to go and get the help that they need. Because when you think about it, you really are the backbone of your family, in this military life as your spouse is deployed. So a lot rests on your shoulders, and it's important that your mental health is intact and you're well. And if you're not, you have a place and a resource to go to get the help and the support that you need. So I think you're doing great work. Really, really awesome. So
thank you so much. Yeah, the team does an incredible job. And I would say that, it's not just when the spouse is deployed. I think so often we think that the most challenging times are when they're deployed, and it certainly is, but
sure.
It's also when they're home.
Yeah.
And just because they're in garrison, I mean, there are still so many opportunities where they're not home, even when they're in garrison, or their hours could be long, or I mean, the mission just comes first, and that can be hard.
Sure. And I've heard that from other, MilSpouses that I've had the wonderful opportunity to speak with, that sometimes when your spouse comes home from deployment, it's that yin and yang of how he kind of integrates himself back into the house and the home, and maybe taking over certain things that, originally were all kind of in your basket, and that could be a hard time, just how everybody sort of integrates together and becomes, husband and wife and family, and he becomes head of the household at that time,
right.
that can be a difficult transition as well.
Yes, the reintegration part is an extremely important part of the whole deployment journey. And
Sure.
I think for many of us, including myself, especially that first deployment, I thought once they were home, everything was fine or going to be fine and, back to normal, whatever that meant.
Yeah.
And it still continues on, and often it's not even right when they come home because you're still in, jokingly the honeymoon phase. It's sometimes the issues that are kind of below the surface don't come up until months later. And that can be surprising for people, especially if you're not prepared for that, if no one talked to you about it. Because a month into their reintegration, you might think, wow, we got this. Everything is fine. And then next thing you know, 3 months later, you and your spouse are having discussions or arguments or struggling through something that is related to the fact that they were gone for many months. And or something that maybe you haven't discussed and they had been holding on to for those months, since coming home. And it might seem like it's out of the blue for you. So if you're not ready for that, if no one talks to you about that, it can seem like you're the only one experiencing it, because on the outside, everyone might think like, oh, well, it's 3-4 months after the deployment. They should be fine by now, right? Yeah. People have stopped checking in on you to see if you and your spouse are okay.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure do you have a how-to guide on that?
But actually, the Waiting Warrior has a reintegration deployment course specifically about this, and we do have a specific discount code, although it's extremely affordable. But she has done a lot of work creating modules in a way that make it not seem so overwhelming, because hopefully you're doing this right while they're deployed, and so you have everything of going through the deployment, and then you're preparing for them to come home. It can seem like a lot. So she has done an amazing job breaking something so important down into very, very manageable pieces that make you feel more confident and ready to face whatever it is that happens. You might not know what it is, but at least you feel like you're prepared to face whatever it is when they come home.
Yeah, it sounds like a great course and very much needed.
Yes.
Yeah, great work. Great work. So can you tell us where people can find and connect with you, and where they can find out more information on Independent?
Yes. So you can find us online at in-dependent.org. We are on Facebook, Independent Org1. Someone else's Independent Org. Still have not found that person yet. Instagram, we're just Independent Org. Those are our two main ones. We also are on Pinterest if you want to pin any of our newest articles or anything like that. And you're always welcome to email Independent if you have any questions or need any help, whether it is finding something related to a specific topic, want to join in our efforts, or if you're just looking for some support, you can email hello@in-dependent.org.
Wow. Okay, that's great. Evie, thank you so much for coming on. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you today. And I just love the work that you're doing. It's so needed, and I think it's just awesome. And congratulations
so
again. For your...
It was great catching up.
Yes. Great catching up with you too. So we'll talk soon. Thanks for coming on. Take care.
Thank you for having me.
Hello, viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for tuning into this Tactical Treasures podcast. We have just finished up an amazing conversation with Evie King, who is a former Army brat, the daughter of 2 Army veterans. She is also an active duty Army MilSpouse, and she was named the 2023 Armed Forces Insurance Military Spouse of the Year. She is currently the board president of Independent, which is a wellness community built by military spouses for military spouses of all branches of the U.S. Armed Forces, making wellness accessible and creating opportunities for all military spouses to connect for friendship, accountability, and inspiration. Independent offers virtual wellness programs and resources, including an annual virtual wellness summit, a wellness directory that links MilSpouses with professionals who understand military and first responder families, and Fuel the Home Front, which is a virtual workshop that helps provide easy, family-friendly meals that maximizes one's budget. To find out more and to tap into all the resources and programs available, head to independent.org. That's in-dependent.org. Again, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Tactical Treasures Podcast. And don't forget, you can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms, as well as Bet TV. And we are now airing on Reach Across America Radio on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern. And if you miss it, then you can listen to the encore on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can also find Reach Across America Radio on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, and the TuneIn app. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on another podcast. Bye-bye now.